Tonight on Unsolved Mysteries.
It was a dark September morning in Puerto Rico when a young man had a terrifying encounter behind his house. So begins the bizarre saga of a beast called chupacabras. They say money doesn't grow on trees, but occasionally it does drop from the sky. Just ask the young couple who found an unexpected treasure in their backyard. More than 30 years ago, a baby girl was left at the doorstep of an orphanage in Vietnam. Today, Kim Shad is an American citizen, and she needs your help to find the two childhood friends she loved as sisters. In life, tobacco heiress Doris Duke was celebrated for her extravagance and envied for her billion-dollar fortune. In death, Duke's memory has been eclipsed by a simmering controversy over control of her estate, an improbable tale of intrigue, deception, and some say murder. Also, you'll see how a woman's search for her long-lost foster son culminated in not one, but two heartwarming reunions. Join me for another edition of Unsolved Mysteries.
I want you to understand that I have no family.
March 4th, 1993, Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, Los Angeles, California.
It's been many, many years since I was divorced.
80-year-old Doris Duke prepares to change the terms of her will. But hers is not just any will. Doris Duke is one of the wealthiest women in America, worth more than $1.2 billion. Waiting in the wings was a person who arguably stood to gain the most, Doris Duke's butler, Bernard Lafferty. Within a year, Duke would be dead, the bulk of her fortune left to charity.
Little girl.
But as sole individual executor of the estate, Bernard Lafferty was given considerable financial control. In addition to an executor fee estimated to be $5 million, Lafferty was designated to receive a bequest of $500,000 a year for life.
I cannot believe she would have put that kind of trust into Bernard. It's just not, it's not possible. There had to be some collusion. There was a manipulation between, in my feeling, between Bernard Lafferty, the doctors, and the lawyers.
Bernard Lafferty, the doctors, and the lawyers. That's a bizarre case of Doris Duke in a nutshell. Since Duke's death, 6 different lawsuits have been filed challenging her will. Everyone you're about to meet has an agenda. Perhaps a truth may be found buried in the Byzantine events of Doris Duke's final days, days which some believe may have ended in murder. Doris Duke was the only child of tobacco tycoon James Buchanan Duke. Doris was just 12 when her father died, leaving her $100 million, a third of his holdings. The press dubbed her the richest girl in the world. As Doris grew up, the fortune also grew, from the millions to over $1 billion.
She personified the rich during the Great Depression. She was a cross between Princess Di and Madonna in the press. People treated her as if she were a major, major star.
Doris Duke led an eccentric and lavish lifestyle. She married twice, divorced twice, and reportedly had dozens of lovers. Among them, movie idol Errol Flynn, General George S. Patton, and Olympic swimming champion Duke Kahanamoku. Kahanamoku allegedly fathered Doris's only child, a daughter who died at birth in 1940. Nearly half a century later, when she was well past 70, Miss Duke adopted, but not a child, a 35-year-old woman named Shandy Hefner. In 1987, Duke rewrote her will and named Shandy as executor of her estate. Eventually, Shandy would fall out of favor, but not before she introduced Miss Duke to Bernard Lafferty.
He was an alcoholic. He had a tremendous drinking problem. Doris told other family members that she was pretty disgusted with him. She used to call him Rafferty instead of Lafferty. She would purposely mispronounce his name. She made fun of him. That's why so many family members were so surprised when, in the end, he was in control.
In 1991, Duke removed Shandy as executor and replaced her with Dr. Harry DEMOPOULOS, a self-styled longevity specialist.
When I went over with her who were the list of possible candidates for executor, and she mentioned Dr. DEMOPOULOS, she mentioned her nephew, she mentioned her business manager at the time, Erwin Bloom, and we considered the list together. Bernard wasn't even on the B list. He wasn't on the A list, he wasn't on the B list.
Within a year, that had changed. Dr. DEMOPOULOS was dropped and replaced by Duke's accountant, who was himself replaced by Duke's half-nephew, along with a butler, Bernard Lafferty.
When Harry DEMOPOULOS and I heard that, we said, this isn't the Miss Duke that we know. This cannot have been a Miss Duke who was acting in her right mind at the time.
On Wednesday, we're to meet with the head of the business.
Bernard Lafferty has various supporters who say he was a natural choice for co-executor. They claim he was Miss Duke's closest confidant and was looking out for her best interests. However, Duke's former housekeeper and her personal chef, who are both suing Lafferty for harassment and breach of contract, disagree.
It's flexible.
Bernard is definitely a manipulator. Bernard let people in and let them out. He picked up the phone. So after a while, he had control of who got in touch with Miss Duke.
He would instruct other employees of Miss Duke to have conversations with Miss Duke about how devoted he was to her. He was trying to win her trust and affections in an obsessive kind of way.
Everything seems to be fine for now.
Within days of appointing Lafferty as co-executor, Doris Duke, then 78, elected to undergo extensive cosmetic surgery. The surgeon, Dr. Harry Glassman, was reportedly recommended by Bernard Lafferty.
Through the autumn of 1991, Miss Duke clearly was failing mentally. It was at this time Bernard pressured her and coerced her and coaxed her into getting involved with Dr. Harry Glassman, who was going to lift her depression by making her young and glamorous again in a minute.
Just 2 days after the cosmetic surgery, Miss Duke fell at home and broke her hip. Dr. Glassman referred her to Beverly Hills physician Dr. Charles Kivowitz, who became Duke's primary physician. Over the next year, Miss Duke was in and out of the hospital several times. By early March of 1993, medical records indicate that she was suffering from bouts of mild confusion.
Deep breath in.
Around this time, Miss Duke apparently decided both to change her will and to give Bernard Lafferty power of attorney. Papers were drawn up by attorneys Alan Kroll and William Doyle, who had been recommended by Dr. Glassman.
Miss Duke, we've prepared your will.
The signing took place at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. Ann Bostich was in the room and claims Miss Duke did not know what she was signing.
Make that a little more comfortable.
She couldn't really sign it. She just sat there like a wooden statue. And Bill Doyle lifted the will up and put his briefcase underneath to raise it up. And she still couldn't sign it. So he slid his hand under her wrist and sort of propelled her hand along so she could scrawl her name. And I stood there and I was totally shocked. I thought, there's something really wrong here.
Very good. Thank you very much, Miss Duke.
In a sworn deposition, William Doyle claims Miss Duke was of sound mind and signed of her own volition. A few weeks later, Bernard Lafferty was also named sole individual executor of the estate. He allegedly went on a spending spree, $60,000 on Armani clothing, $25,000 on jewelry, and several thousand more on flowers and gifts. All of the purchases were reportedly charged to the estate. In July of 1993, Doris Duke suffered a stroke. She returned home after 2 months in the hospital. Her bedroom had been transformed into an intensive care unit with round-the-clock nursing supervision.
Good. Miss Duke? Miss Duke?
Dr. Charles Kivowitz stated the following in an affidavit given after Duke's death.
Doris Duke's medical situation while she was at home in late September 1993 was terminal. Although upon her discharge from the hospital, I had initially hoped that she would improve for several months. Shortly after she returned home, her condition began to deteriorate.
No, she's resting comfortably.
One of Miss Duke's nurses was Tammy Payette. In an affidavit filed in January of 1995, Payette stated,
Within a short period of time after she arrived home, Ms. Duke's physical therapy was cut off, and she was placed on a massive sedation regime by Dr. Kivowitz at the request of Bernard Lafferty, Ms. Duke's butler.
The rehab is discontinued and the drugs go up. She's kept down, she's sedated, and at that point, it seems to me, Lafferty and the others have taken control of her life.
Tammy Payette's credibility, however, has been called into serious question. Recently, she was sentenced to 8 years in prison for stealing nearly $1 million worth of valuables from several of her patients.
They get her to come up with an affidavit 18 months after Doris Duke's death, saying, my God, Doris Duke is being mistreated here. She could have lived for 5 years. The medication was too great. Where was she when Doris Duke was alive?
On October 7th, Dr. Kivowitz began to administer Demerol by injection, even though Tammy Payette claims Miss Duke was not in pain. Payette further claims that Duke's request to return to the hospital was ignored.
They've got her home, she's signed the will. If they let her out, if they let her meet a friend, if they let somebody come in there and they rehab her, she may sign other wills. This is the time for Miss Duke to die.
She made the decision in full possession of her faculties that she no longer wanted to go to Cedars-Sinai or anywhere else. She wanted to remain comfortable and pain-free there in her house. That's where, if she was going to die, she wanted to die, and Dr. Kivowitz followed her orders. He would have followed any orders she had given him.
9 days later, Dr. Kivowitz ordered that Miss Duke be given Demerol by continuous intravenous drip rather than injection. In his affidavit, Kivowitz explained,
By October 26, 1993, I believed to a reasonable degree of medical certainty that Miss Duke was near death.
The next day, a parcel was delivered to the Duke mansion, addressed to one of the nurses.
A package arrived, and it was from a drug company somewhere. And Bernard jumped out of the chair, and he ran over, and he grabbed the box, and he looked at it, and then took it downstairs. And then a few minutes later, he said to me, oh, Miss Duke is going to die tonight.
And he said it with a definitive finality. It wasn't like the other times where he was saying, oh, I think she's dying.
In his affidavit, Dr. Kivowitz acknowledged a change in medication. That afternoon, he substituted morphine for Demerol. In her affidavit, Tammy Payette made note of Bernard Lafferty's reaction to the day's events.
Later that evening, Bernard became very excited and impatient because Ms. Duke was lingering and called Dr. Kivowitz explaining that Ms. Duke had not expired.
Right, thank you very much. Yes, goodbye.
Records indicate that Dr. Kivowitz then returned to the mansion and administered another 10 milligrams of morphine by intravenous push. He recorded that the patient was in a state of advanced pulmonary edema, a fluid buildup in the lungs. Tammy Payette's affidavit paints a different picture.
Eventually, as a result of the morphine IV, Ms. Duke's kidneys began to fail. Her lungs filled up with fluid, and her circulation began to deteriorate. Ms. Duke did not have pulmonary edema, and no doctor had diagnosed pulmonary edema.
Everybody there knew that Miss Duke was going to be dying with the addition of that morphine. And you can see the lockstep relationship. Increased doses, drip, drip, drip into Miss Duke. Down goes the breathing, down goes the heartbeat, until we're at a flat line.
Ms. Duke? Ms. Duke, can you hear me?
At 4 a.m. on October 28th, Doris Duke was clinging to life.
Duke, can you hear
Her
me?
respirations had decreased to 4 to 5 per minute.
Ms. Duke?
According to the nurse's records, written by Tammy Payette, Dr. Kivowitz phoned and increased the morphine dosage.
I asked in the deposition of the doctor, was she in pain? Of course not, she's unconscious, and yet we're increasing the morphine. There's no reason other than pain or terminating a patient to increase the morphine at that point, and that's what happened with Miss Duke.
Dr. Kivowitz did everything he could to keep her pain-free and comfortable, and whenever he gave Nurse Payette the discretion to increase the medication if necessary, Nurse Payette increased it far beyond what he authorized, then claimed 18 months later that he was the one over-medicating her. It doesn't make sense.
At 5:15 a.m., according to notes from another nurse, a 100 milligram dose of Demerol was added to the morphine drip by, quote, telephone order of Dr. Glassman per Dr. Kivowitz. An hour later, Doris Duke was dead.
I believe that woman wanted every chance possible to live. She had a strong constitution and a will, and I know she wanted to live, and I know they killed her.
I mean, she went to these doctors because she wanted to dance again. She wanted to go and be photographed shopping in Paris. And what happens is a year and a half later, they're hooking her up to machines, giving her amounts of drugs that would drop Napoleon's army.
If you look at the facts here, at the care that was given by Dr. Kivowitz, at the money at stake, you realize there's only one motive here, and that's to get their hands on part of the estate of Doris Duke, and to do so they will drag any innocent people into it that they feel it's necessary, and unfortunately, Dr. Kivowitz is one of those innocent people.
Her father told her, Doris, you have more money than anyone else. People are never going to love you except for your money. She did not trust people. Her father had told her that. And so Bernard Lafferty was able to fill a void. He came into a vacuum. He then found a group of opportunists. He found medical doctors, and he found lawyers who saw him as someone who they could control. So while he used Miss Duke, he was also, I think, used by those around him who had something to gain.
Next, Keely Shea Smith reports from the phone center. See how your calls brought about 2 joyous reunions. Also, with your help, a poignant tale of lost friendship that began in Vietnam 3 decades ago could end tonight, here in the United States. And later, we'll take you to Puerto Rico, where some residents claim that a frightening predator is roaming the countryside. Here at Unsolved Mysteries, we've learned to expect the unexpected. Tonight's update is a perfect example. May 7th, 1964, Queens, New York. Jean and Don Warren rushed to greet the newest member of their family, a 2-year-old foster child named Roger Lindsley.
Roger, say hello, Roger. Hello. Hello, Roger. Welcome to our family.
I fell in love with him immediately. There was something about him that drew me to him. And I said to myself, this is going to be my son.
Over the next 3 years, Roger became just that, the 4th child and only son in a warm and loving household.
I think adjusting in our family was the best thing for Roger. Whatever we did, he was there with us. And each day I was loving this child more and more and more.
But in 1967, Jean and her husband had to move to Ohio. They were heartbroken to learn that they could not take Roger with them. Jean will never forget the morning the social worker came to take Roger away.
When she took him to the car, he looked at us and looked at me, and I remember him putting out his hand and crying, "I don't want to go, I don't want to go." And
You be a good boy, Roger.
I could only say, "Roger, be good, take care of yourself, and I love you, and I'll always remember you."
Jean Warren remained true to her word. She never stopped looking for Roger. Here's Keely Shea Smith to tell you how she found him.
Bob, the night of our broadcast, we received a call from a very excited Roger Lindsley. He was thrilled to learn that Jean was looking for him. Normally, that would have been enough, but a few minutes later, we were stunned to hear from a man named James Lindsley, who turned out to be Roger's long-lost brother. Suddenly, the stage was set for a remarkable double reunion. On March 8, 1996, 30 years after they were separated, Roger Lindsley finally came home to Jean Warren, the woman he still calls Mom.
Oh, you are handsome. How are you?
I'm fine.
I was ecstatic.
So beautiful.
My heart started pounding. I would like him and his wife to be a part of our family. And it's so nice to hear him call me Mom. That makes it all worthwhile.
Hi, Wendy. I feel so much love for that woman.
Carol.
She has changed my life.
As the oldest girl.
I got a family overnight. Overnight, I got a family, and I'm a happy man.
These are the pictures of your life of the 3 years that you spent with us.
The reunion with Jean was a rousing success, but there was more to come, much more. Roger's brother James was on the way. They hadn't seen each other in nearly 3 decades.
Hey!
Hey, Roger. How you doing,
happening?
man? Where you been, huh?
Can't believe it.
That's unbelievable. There's no feeling in the world you could imagine. Is not to have a family, and then 30 years later in your life, you see somebody that's like you is indescribable.
I'm overwhelmed. I really am. I found my foster mother. I found my brother. We were separated as infants. I couldn't see leaving this world without knowing where I came from. And now I know.
Believe it or not, there was still more to come. In the weeks since their reunion, Roger and James have found both their brother Philip and their father Philip Sr. For one family, a happy ending and a new beginning.
The snapshot is a window to another place and time. The Regina Pacis Catholic Orphanage in Vietnam, circa 1967. For a woman named Kim Shad, shown here at the age of 8, the picture is one of the few tangible links to her childhood friends Nok and Young Sing. Kim hopes that tonight they will all be reunited here in the United States after a separation of nearly 30 years.
I feel that growing up together in the orphanage, they're the only roots that I've known, and I would like to find them again.
Kim's ancestral roots were lost forever in the land of her birth, swept away by history and circumstance. As an infant, Kim was left for the nuns of the orphanage to find. It was a parish priest who christened her Tron Thai Kim Ha. She joined some 80 other girls at the orphanage, and there she came of age. By the time Kim turned 5, she and her friends Nok and Young Sing were inseparable.
Young Sing and I, we would always try to sit together in the classroom. And during recess, we would go out and we would play in the playground together. We just seemed to always be together. And we didn't really think about parents because we were raised in the orphanage and we feel that's like family.
Kim's life was far from luxurious, but she was sheltered from the winds of war stirring beyond the orphanage walls. By the mid-60s, Saigon was flooded with American troops. Some found their way to the orphanage.
They would hand us out lifesavers, raw cherry lifesavers. I remember that because that was like my favorite candy. Nuk, Young Sing, and I, we would talk about this. We hope that someday an American family would adopt us, bring us to America, where we could live free and live happy.
With the war escalating around them, the nuns redoubled their efforts to find permanent homes for the girls. Kim's chance came during the spring of 1967.
Can you come with me? There's someone I want you to meet. Sure. Okay.
Lawrence Schutter was a retired Air Force lieutenant colonel. He and his wife had already adopted 2 boys. Now they wanted a little girl.
Call me, Larry.
Hi, Larry.
Hi. Did Sister tell you?
Before an adoption could move forward, the nuns wanted Kim and the Schutter family to get acquainted.
You. Now, I have something special for you. What do you think it is? What's that? There you go.
Thank you.
You know how to drive that thing? Well, I'll show you how. Come on.
Nearly every weekend for 6 months, Schutter took Kim on an outing. Some days he would spend hours just meandering through Saigon, trying on the roles of father and daughter. In the end, it would be Kim's decision whether or not to leave the orphanage and join the Schutter family. For advice, she turned to her closest confidants, Nok and Young Sing.
I don't really want to go to America. Well, it makes you happy that you can go. I'll miss you guys, and you guys won't be there. They could take good care of you. I don't really know anybody in the United States. They have good cheeseburgers there.
An 8-year-old has no idea of what going to America means. No matter how well someone tries to explain it to them, it is total culture shock. So you go to America is like saying, go to Cinderella's palace.
Have you decided?
I'm not really sure.
Sister Lucy, the Mother Superior, provided the final nudge towards a choice.
If Colonel Shuetta wanted to adopt Yang Ching or Ngup, you want them to go have a good life, don't you?
Yes.
Well, that's what I want for you. And that's what God wants.
Then I'll miss my friends.
Maybe this would help. And don't worry. There's an American family that wants to adopt Yang Ching and Ngup together.
You mean they're going to America too?
Someday.
I was a little nervous about leaving. Very scared, but yet kind of excited. They were excited for me and happy for me that I got a chance to go and have a better life.
Ready to go?
And that was the last time I got to see them.
Kim left Vietnam with her adoptive father in September of 1967. Today, she lives outside San Antonio, Texas, with her husband and 2 sons. Her older boy is about the same age that Kim was when she left the Regina Pacis orphanage in Saigon nearly 30 years ago. At that time, Kim's friend Young Sing was between 5 and 8 years old. Today, she would be in her mid-30s. Nok was about 8 years old. She would be in her late 30s. Both girls may have been adopted by the same family and raised as sisters in the United States. Next, in Puerto Rico, reports abound that a mysterious unknown beast is on the loose. This is the Yunque rainforest on the island of Puerto Rico. A tropical paradise, perhaps best described as heaven on earth. But something is reportedly lurking on the fringes of the forest, a mysterious beast which has turned heaven into hell.
When it moved, I could see it had something here on its head. It was like a crest, but it moved and made a noise. When I saw him stick out his pointed tongue, and when he held his claws and crouched for an attack, I thought I was the next victim.
I felt like he was watching me because of certain movements made by his eyes. I could see 3 fingers on each hand, and on each finger, very long claws.
They call the beast chupacabras. It preys on livestock and domesticated pets. It may look like a creature out of a low-budget horror film, yet these composite drawings are based on eyewitness descriptions from dozens of Puerto Ricans. In this day and age, it seems almost impossible that such a creature might exist. Tales of the Puerto Rican monster have been dismissed as fantasy and imagination, its attacks attributed to wild dogs or monkeys. Some of the images you're about to see are unpleasant, but necessary to understand the phenomenon of chupacabras. David Negron was one of the first to encounter the beast. Before dawn on September 9th, 1995, David went out to check on the family goat. David was startled to discover that his goat had been killed.
After I found the goat dead, I was standing there looking around, and that's when I saw the creature. It was black and hairy. It had large red eyes and a crest on top of its head. When I saw it, I felt scared and I began to run. I've never seen anything like that, and I've never been that scared before.
Later that day, investigators from the civil defense were called to the scene. When they examined the goat, the only injuries they found were 2 small puncture wounds on the back of its neck. Yet surprisingly, the goat had been almost entirely drained of its blood. The local press immediately seized upon the story. The creature was dubbed Chupacabras, the goat sucker. Over the next 3 months, dozens of attacks were reported. The targets were all small animals. Strangely, their carcasses were largely intact. Journalist Jorge Martin followed up many of the stories and began to see a pattern.
In many occasions, these are puncture wounds, about, I would say, maybe a 1/4 to a half an inch in size, perfect circles. These small puncture wounds go into the animals. In most occasions, we have found that they seem to go right to the brain of the animals and kill the animals, affecting the brain and the nervous system of the animals. In other occasions, they go right straight into the animals in different areas, as if looking for certain organs. In most occasions, the organs affected are the livers of the animals, and the reproductive systems of the animals too.
Attacks have been reported all over Puerto Rico, with the greatest concentration in the village of Canóvanas, 30 miles east of the capital city, San Juan. By October of 1995, even the mayor of Canóvanas, Jose Soto, had taken an active role in the investigation.
I began to take an interest in this matter when I visited a farm where 5 sheep had been killed. I saw 2 wounds in the neck, and on some a 3rd mark. It attacks various animals, but mostly sheep and rabbits, because they cannot defend themselves easily.
Over the next few months, Mayor Soto visited the sites of several killings. He interviewed witnesses and organized search parties. The attacks continued.
There have been more than 100 animals killed. We're talking about 70 or 80 attacks. At the moment, we have some hysteria, some real problems, and some fear. I'm determined to resolve this matter.
Despite the hysteria, there were still many skeptics. Among them, police detective Eliezer Rivera.
I didn't believe in this chupacabra. The people were just speculating, or perhaps because they were emotional or afraid, they exaggerated things. Personally, I never was convinced of these stories. I just never believed them.
That changed one night as Rivera and a friend drove home from church.
I saw something strange on the roadside. I thought it was a puppet. But as I watched and observed the puppet, it began to move, and I thought, what is this? It had long eyes that were illuminated. It had fangs. It was hairy, and it had 3 fingers with claws. When I opened the car door, the animal stuck out a long spike from his mouth. I interpreted this spike as a defense mechanism, and so I sat back, closed the door, and kept watching. In my experience as an investigator, we're trained to analyze and quietly evaluate things. But in that moment, I can't lie to you, I was scared. Now I know what's out there when people talk about chupacabra. He exists. He is not any known animal. I tell you sincerely, what I saw was not of this world.
Most of the eyewitness descriptions are describing the same type of creature with the same details. They describe something beast-like, animal-like, with a strange type of head, more humanoid-looking, with big, red, luminous eyes, a flat nose, a small, slit-like mouth with some fangs protruding out from it, almost no ears.
In late November, Jorge Martin and a TV news crew asked veterinarian Carlos Soto to examine 2 rabbits allegedly killed by chupacabras. Dr. Soto made a number of perplexing discoveries. A precise circular wound on the back of one rabbit's neck, the removal of specific internal organs, and the absence of rigor mortis.
I thought, wow, this is something strange here, because this is not normal. On my 8 years in practice, I never seen that before. It was my first time to see something that odd.
A month later, Dr. Soto examined 20 dead birds. Each had been killed by a puncture wound to the back of the neck.
I have seen birds in which they don't go into rigor mortis again, some birds in which they are depleted from all the internal organs, okay? Some birds in which the blood never coagulates, and also some birds in which we'll see a perfect round wound again, and all the thoracic and abdominal cavity is being opened, okay? Like a perfect wound, okay? So it's strange what we've seen.
In the animal autopsies that I've done, the evidence does suggest that these animals were attacked by something.
Dr. David Morales, a veterinarian and spokesperson for the Puerto Rican government, discounts rumors of a strange, unknown beast.
podemos pensar que pueden ser perros.
We think that they were attacked by dogs. They might be wild dogs.
Pueden ser tigres.
They could be vicious monkeys or could be tigers. There are a number of possible predators that could attack these animals in this way.
These animals are left intact sometimes, and the perfect wounds that we have are not compatible with dog bite wounds.
Something strange is going on. This isn't about dogs or monkeys or bats or anything like that. It's something very strange. And the creature that we're searching for is very intelligent.
These attacks can't be dismissed as accounts of drunken people or ignorant people, because we're talking about highly reliable people all over Puerto Rico who are witnessing these attacks and these creatures too.
Until recently, every reported attack by chupacabras has been in Puerto Rico. But last month in Miami, 2 goats and 26 chickens perished in a manner that was almost identical to the killings in Canovenas. Perhaps the massacre was a work of dogs, or a cruel hoax, or perhaps, just perhaps, the chupacabras does walk among us. Next, a young couple is stunned when a lost treasure apparently falls from the sky. Imagine that you're a young married couple. You're struggling to make ends meet, wondering if you'll ever have enough money to buy a house and send the kids to college. You dream about the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, but you certainly don't expect to find it in your own backyard. November 12, 1995 was like any other Sunday for Matt and Wendy Jameson of Fair Oaks, California. They spent the morning in church and returned home around 10:30. But on this particular Sunday, something just short of miraculous would occur. It began with a damp, excited dog.
I noticed my dog was wet, and I was wondering how she got wet because it hadn't rained.
Why are you all wet?
And then I noticed it looked like paper all over the backyard. When I walked up there, I noticed it was money. Then I took off running towards it.
Wendy! Indeed, that paper was money. $6,500 and $20 bills. Origin, unknown.
Where did this come from?
I don't know, just stop picking it up.
I was trying to get it the fastest I could. I didn't know where this came from, and this is a new neighborhood to us, and I didn't want a lot of people seeing me have all this money, so I was trying to pick it up as fast as I could.
Can't pick it all up.
Keep picking it up, I'm gonna go put this inside.
It took 20 minutes to collect all the bills, and another 20 to count them.
I've never seen this much money before.
I know. Where do you think it came from?
I don't know, it could be stolen, I don't know. Even maybe it's fake money.
I don't know. The
don't know, it
numbers
looks
look
real.
different, these ones.
The Jamesons' first instinct was to call the police. But then again, $6,500 was a lot of money. Temptation began to creep in.
We decided to wait till the next day to decide. And then I was kind of thinking, oh, well, that night I was thinking, oh, it'd be nice to have some things. So I started kind of more leaning towards wanting to keep it, but...
Well, I stayed up the whole night we found it. I didn't get any sleep. Any noise I heard, I was up looking around, you know, seeing what's going on, because I expected somebody to come back after it, and, you know, I have a family to protect, and I wasn't about to let anybody come in this house, so I was definitely waiting up.
One sleepless night was more than enough.
Yeah, hello, Sheriff's Department. I found some money in my backyard. I'm wondering who I should speak to about this.
I've been in law enforcement 27 years, and I've never seen a case like this in my 27 years of experience. Not only did we find money at this residence, we found money next door and at the house behind, and also on the rooftops of one of the houses, which was quite unusual. It appears at this point there's a couple reasons why this may have happened. The first speculation is somebody may have thrown it out of an airplane. We have a lot of planes flying throughout the county here, and there's airports all around us. The second speculation is that it could be drug money and somebody threw it from the street over the house, it landed on a roof, and subsequently fell off into the backyards.
Why don't we count this money out, and you can verify that I come up with $6,500, and we'll...
All told, more than $10,000 had apparently just dropped from the sky. California law required the finders to place an ad in the local newspaper. The owner then had up to 90 days to claim the money. If no claim was made, Matt and Wendy would get to keep the lion's share of the 20s from heaven.
A lot of people, you know, say, why'd you turn it in? Why'd you turn it in? You know, I would have kept it. But I really don't think that you can say that honestly until you've lived having that money around. And then, you know, I always thought, personally, if I found money like that, that I would probably keep it. But now, after having that amount of money around, I know that I did the right thing.
As it turned out, March 1st, 1996 rolled around and the 90-day waiting period ended. Matt and Wendy are now legally entitled to the $6,500, which they plan to use towards a down payment on a house. As far as the Jamesons are concerned, this is one unsolved mystery where honesty truly paid off. On our next Unsolved Mysteries, Shelley Malone knew almost all there was to know about horses. So when Shelley died in a freak riding accident, her family was naturally surprised. Now their doubts have grown into outright suspicion and led them to a stunning conclusion. On a stormy summer afternoon, a bolt of lightning left a young man at death's door, setting the stage for the appearance of a mysterious lady in black and the miraculous resurrection. Nearly 30 years ago, the assassination of Senator Robert Kennedy shocked the nation. Today, this man claims that photographs he took that night could change the official record, but those pictures have inexplicably disappeared. Join me next time for Unsolved Mysteries.